गुड इवनिंग, नमस्कार, सत श्री अकाल आप सभी को। आई अंडरस्टैंड बहुत दिनों के बाद मैं फिर से लाइव आई हूँ वॉइस ऑफ मानवता टीवी न्यूज चैनल पे, और आज हमारे साथ बहुत ही खास इंसान है। और ये एक वैसे इंसान है, ये एक वो इंसान है जिनकी तारीफ में जितनी भी करूँ वो कम पड़ेंगे, बिकॉज जो हम लोग बोलते हैं ये हमारे वॉइस ऑफ मानवता की बैकबोन है। He is one of the strongest pillar in the voice of Manavta. And yes, what is voice of Manavta? Voice of Manavta is the voice of the people, where we do not discriminate, we do not judge anyone, we do not pass comments. This is not anyone's private channel, but this is your channel. Yes, you means you and me. So this is our channel, this is the channel of public, and we speak on behalf of the public. We try to inspire people with different journey. We try to bring people from different background, different journey, and different aspects of life. So today, this very special guest of ours, Dr. Kirpal Singh, who is a retired psychiatrist who graduated from Medical College, Amritsar in 1965. So he's 80 years old. He did his psychiatric residency in UK. Then he migrated to USA in 1971, and at present he is staying in the New York City. So Dr. Kirpal Singh,
Yes.
तहे से आपका स्वागत है वॉइस ऑफ मानवता टीवी न्यूज चैनल पे। हम ये शो ऑलमोस्ट एवरी सैटरडे करते हैं, मैं करती हूँ ये ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ वॉइस ऑफ मानवता, जहाँ पे हम डिफरेंट लोगों को, अलग अलग व्यक्ति को बुलाते हैं, उनके जर्नी के बारे में सुनते हैं, उनके लाइफ के बारे में क्या अप्स एंड डाउन्स थे। बेसिकली क्या होता है ना, लोग हमेशा लाइक दे स्पीक अबाउट देयर सक्सेस, बट most of the people, they don't want to talk about their failure. But failure is what inspires many of us. Failure is what inspires the youth of today. So I welcome you to this show of mine, to Voice of Manavta TV News channel, and it's a real pleasure for me to be interviewing you or getting to know about your life journey. So welcome once again, Dr. Kirpal Singh.
Thank you, Christina. ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਫਤਿਹ, ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ, ਸਲਾਮ, ਨਮਸਤੇ, ਜੋ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਪਿਛੋਕੜ ਹੋਵੇ ਪ੍ਰਵਾਨ ਕਰਨਾ। ਇਸ in America it's the morning. The time right now is 9:35. So good morning from America. And thank you for your kind words of introduction. They are more than I deserve, and I appreciate and commend the energy behind all this program. Really is Meghrai Singh, who is working day and night to make sure that public voice is projected in a right manner, so that people are aware of how we can support them and their different backgrounds and causes. Thank you.
Yes, so tell us something. How did you start this journey of yours from India to the USA?
Thank you for asking that question. I am from a small village in district Ludhiana, Punjab. Place is called Adda Dakha or Mullapur Dakha, and this is a place where the road goes from Ludhiana to Firozpur toward the border between India and Pakistan. And my mother's folks lived in Moga. Moga is a fairly large town in India, in Punjab. And I was born in my mother's house. And, I was they had mainly girls in the house born. And it was after a very long time that when I was born, they were happy that at least one boy is born. So I was, this is what I heard from my father. At that time, the men were very reluctant to go and see their newborn child unless their parents suggest them and allow them. And that was the kind of culture. So when my father came to see me, I was dark-colored person, and one of my lip was turned inside. And when he went back, my grandfather asked him how was the little boy, and he said, "Bapuji, oh, tuade varga hai." My grandfather was a very dark-colored. Bapuji said, "Oh, beta, then that's great. Mera rang mushki na thand na khushki." What that means is that my color is black, but I don't experience any pain whether it's summer or winter and all. I'm always the same. So that's the good news, he said. So reassured him, and I like that. This is how my beginning was. Then, of course, I was raised in my grandparents' home as a little child. My father used to be in the service, in the military, and he worked as what they call UDC, upper division clerk, in the civilian wing of the military. But he found that the wages were not enough as far as raising the family is concerned. So he resigned from that place and started exploring possibilities of starting his own business. So through many ups and downs, and eventually he found out that he's going to start a business in Adadakha. That's where I grew up. I was about 3 years old when we moved to that town. My father and mother worked very hard. My father had a team of what they call weavers with whom he worked, and the ladies will bring the yarn they had done in their houses, and they wanted cloth made out of it. So my father, and then they wanted different colors of it, yellow or brown or whatever. So my mother and father used to dye those and then gave it to their team of weavers to make cloth. And in the process, they charged commission. And that's how our beginning started. And that was a hard work, really hard work. We had a front part, we lived in the business, and behind we lived. And in the veranda, we had this sooth, they call them sooth in Punjabi, which was, they were working on it. Eventually, my father, going to the Gurdwara, found a young fellow who came from Pakistan who had a license to open a textile shop. But he did not have the money for investment. So my father paid X number of rupees to him every month to buy that license and started the textile business on that basis. Plus, he had brought, blankets and all sorts of things from. And I was assisting as a child to him in the shop business, as well as my mother. And then from there, one thing leading to another, he established a good textile business. I started my education at home with my mother. My mother had 5th grade education. My father, high school graduate. My mother, we didn't have much resources. We used to gather wood, and she'll make fire on that. She will cook the food with a hand mill in which she will do the wheat, grind it, and then after the food was served with cup of tea and the chapati covered with butter and salt, and we ate, and that was delicious. But at the end, she used the same ash to clean her utensils. Half of the ash she used to spread on the floor for me, on which she taught me Uda, Ada, Idi, Sisa. This is the Punjabi alphabet. And I will trace on it with my hand like that. That's how I learned how to learn count. My plus, minus, subtraction, all I learned from my mother at home. She was my first guru. And then I helped her in almost everything because I was the oldest child. And so she taught me how to read Japji Sahib, which is the 6th scripture, at home. And by the time I went to the school, which is they call primary school, it was in the Gurdwara, I already knew quite a bit of stuff at home, learned from my mother. I had another interesting thing is I had what they call, these days we call attention deficit disorder. I was hyperactive child, and I, uh, was always asking questions and be after her for this thing and that thing. So when she'll help me to read and write, that way my concentration will shift to some other things. So I not only learned new things, but it also was a treatment for my attention deficit disorder, which I didn't know much about, of course, through the years. But then I discovered when I became a physician what it is all about. Another thing was that I had a color blindness. I cannot identify different shades of red and green, especially brown is very difficult for me to identify. So my father, when he asked me to help in the shop and find out, give me that piece of cloth which is brown or reddish blue or this and that, and I couldn't follow what he was talking about. I used to ask him, please tell me which piece you want, fifth from above or fourth from down, so I will identify that way, but not from the color. But I didn't know what color blindness was at that time, but it was quite a problemsome and caused a lot of problem between my father and I, because he thought I was lazy and not paying attention. Then, of course, after high school, I joined the college, local parochial college, in which chemistry. I failed the chemistry test because I couldn't identify in the flame test from the color what the radical was. So I had to repeat that. But all that what made me was those deficits, so to say. I also had difficulty recognizing right and left in my life. Even now I have. I have in my mental image that I want to turn right, but if someone else tells me, I don't comprehend. So thank God these GPS and all other kinds of mechanisms exist now for made my life easy. But having said that, all those deficits really actually were blessings in disguise for me. They helped me to develop good communication skills because I needed help. And that help became the reason for the communication skills success throughout my life. So all those deficits, what we may call difficulties, really, there's something better waiting for us. Every cloud has a silver lining, like you say. So from there, after the what they call 2 years of college used to be called Faculty of Science degree. Then I entered the Medical College Amritsar, and there 5 years. That was a long process. But I had to befriend my lab assistants and all, really, to tell me the color to pass through those examinations, because I couldn't go on the basis of color. All our bacteriology and urine testing and blood management, all you needed color to identify what color it is and all. But somehow through friendship with the lab assistants, I managed to pass through all those exams first time, thank God, because my parents were not able to afford this tuition fee. It's hardly possible for them to do that when I was going through those exams. But they were very hardworking. They persevered. They never questioned me about anything, trusted me, and one thing leading to another. But my father said, one thing I want you to promise with me, if I die or your mother dies and we don't have any resources for business reverses, you will take care of your brothers and sisters, because otherwise, all our money is being used on you, on your growth and progress. And I agreed that no matter what, I will try to follow that covenant, agreement with us. So after completing 5 years in the medical school, then I went to PGI for 2 years, and there I did my internship and housemanship. Then I learned from other boys. I wanted to do the postgraduate training. They were going to England. So from there I got a lead to go to England. Applied for the employment voucher, and then I ended up in England. Again, getting a passport used to be a big problem. But one of my patients over there was a secretary, health secretary's wife, and who used to come and with my we became friends. And when it came to passport, one time the agent told me that if you go to a gazetted officer, if they sign your paper that you have a good character and all, you won't have to go through all police inquiry and every kind of thing. And I mentioned that to that health secretary that I need a passport. He said, no matter, doctor, give me your certificate, I'll be glad to sign it. So this is how I got my passport in no time. Everyone was surprised, how did I get so soon? But your communication skills, your compassion you learn at home, and the deficit you have, you use them, and know that there are many people who exist similarly as you, give you extra empathy to help others. That's how I went to UK.
Your story is really like, I was actually lost listening to you and what you've been through. So tell me something, sir. Because of these deficiency that you were talking about, you could not recognize the color, or there were times that you could not even know the difference between left and right. Were you ever made fun of by your friends at school or anywhere? Like, did people try to target you because of this, or did they try to make fun of you because of these deficiency? And if they did, how did you overcome that? Because as a child, we often tend to get hurt by mean words. We often tend to get hurt by, when someone just tries to mock us. So how did you face these challenges? How did you overcome them?
That's a good point. One thing I learned in my life was that it's better to do a mistake now and learn from it than to keep hiding it. So I never hid my deficits. To my friends or teachers and others, I always said, this is my issue, this is my problem, so I will need help. And you'll be surprised how good they were to me. How, knowing that I had difficulty, they'll bend backward to help me. And I learned that these people are so good to me. My job is also to be bent backward to help others. So this is how my learning took place in that area. Never hide or try to lie, because those lies get exposed anyway sooner or later and all. Then you have to cover them with one thing and another. And this is also came to me from my spiritual teachings, following the Guru Nanak's life story. And when we read about how he chose to live with the carpenter by Lalo's house instead of the Malkpago, who was the wealthy man, he chose to stay there and eat with him, then go to the banquet of Malkpago, because he said, honesty is the best policy. This man's bread may look poor, but it's like milk, while the other person's who banquet is like blood dripping out of it, because he lied and he wasn't fair to his people, and as a result he became rich. But now he's offering all these banquets and all. That's not the banquet in the real sense. It's the blood of a poor people. So those kind of stories made a big difference on me as I grew up. And so many other stories. And like, for example, when he goes to the Hardwar, the people are giving water to the sun, sun worshippers. And he asked them, what were they doing? And they're saying their ancestors live in the sun and they are thirsty, so they are throwing water for them. He went a few yards away, started throwing water to the west, saying that, people gathered around him. Hey, are you foolish? What are you doing? He said, oh, no, I have my crops in Nankana Sahib, and I am sending water because such a hot summer, and they will die if there was no water for them. How can that water go there? He said, the same way, like it'll reach your ancestors in the sun, which is so hot. He made people speechless. He made them think. So logic was very important for Guru Nanak, for his followers to acquire and base. But when the logic and there's no other, then you throw yourself into mysticism. And then that becomes a sort of intuitive knowledge. So those kind of stories were part of my background, which always inspired me to move on. And the lessons learned from them were extremely useful throughout my life. And I try to teach those things to my children and grandchildren too.
So tell us something. What were the major challenges that you might have faced when you initially moved to the USA?
First of all, coming from a village, I've never seen that lights. Everything, the traffic went by lights over there. There used to be zebra crossings and all that. I've never seen them. All that was new for me, and learning that change as a light change, I was always scared, How am I going to, in case I'm in an accident or something like that? It took me some time to learn because of my poor direction and not being aware of the traffic lights and all those road signs. But gradually I learned, again, asking people questions. Then I started what they call a temporary job in a hospital. And there comes my first patient. He says, "Oh, doctor, I got a frog in my throat." My goodness, I got so baffled not knowing how the frog will reach the throat. Young nurse, so she was so sweet. She held my wrist and she said, "Doctor, he's got a sore throat." And then I examined him and prescribed the antibiotic. So those kind of things were very helpful for me. My relationship with the nurses. Nurses were my teachers really and guides, and they were so compassionate and helpful. And I have such a lot of respect for them. And then another patient comes, he says, "Oh, my son has runs." I thought, what's wrong with running? Huh? I never heard the runs. Actually, the same nurse told me he's got a diarrhea. Huh? Runs and diarrhea and these things you don't learn from the books or in India. Another person came, he said, "I've been throwing up all night." I never heard that term either, the throwing up, what that means. So she helped me that he has been vomiting and he needs help in that area. Another person comes, he says, "Oh, doctor, I have heebie-jeebies." My God, what is heebie-jeebies? Never heard about those things. Then she told me that he is having sort of tremors, anxious, and that's what heebie-jeebies are. So all this kind of stuff was hard for me to learn, very baffling. But thank God to my nurses who rescued me all the time. And then, the language in England is not a language standard English, the way we are talking about. They had what they call sort of Cockney. The local accent was Cockney, which was sort of, mumbo jumbo, and I couldn't follow. And half the time most of the time they use these slangs. But it took me time to eventually learn about those things. It was quite a baffling as well as miserable as well as joyful experience. But thanks again to my wonderful nurses over there who helped me out of that situation. Another aspect was, Christina, the time. In India, you have sunset and sunrise and all. When I went to England, but in the hospital, that place, it was midnight and it seemed like it's a noon. The sun was so bright. I have to shut all my windows and all to be able to go to sleep, because in the morning I had to go to work. So the adjustment to the time, the days were so long over there, and the days were so short. That was a big new experience. Then the thick fog in the winter to negotiate, that was another London fog, as you know. So those are really practical problems I had. Escalators. I've never seen those escalators in the central London. Oh my goodness. You're scared to death that in case it stops or you go down and you never survive. But that's that's how you come across those um, fears, and nothing else except that you have to do it. And I had to pray a lot for confidence to try those things, especially for the first time.
So I have even heard that I don't know, like you would be the better person to tell me. I've even heard that you do a lot of social work. So how did you get inspired, or how did you manage to get time out of your busy schedule? Because I know how busy a doctor can be once at the hospital, and they do not have any set time for their work, because there could be emergency any point of time, and be it a doctor in any specific department or specialty, they would still have to report, they would still have to work on an emergency case. So how did you manage both, doing social work, trying to help the underprivileged children or people, and then manage your work as well?
Good question. When you are at work, like you said, there's no time. You can't do anything. During your spare time, when you're off, that's the time when you rest and try to find some time to do the social work. But not when you're on duty. I was an ER physician, emergency room physician in England, in London. And there I had to, there were long lines of people coming, especially in the evening. And a lot of people were the same, who will get hurt or drunk or similar kind of problems, repeaters. And I had to start a little bit counseling with them to, how they need to take care of themselves and how not to hurt themselves again and again, refer to the chaplain in the hospital, or ask nurses to put them in touch with the right people and all. Eventually, one of my consultants, suggested that because I'm interested in people's problems and prevention point of view, why don't I do a locum tenens in the field of psychiatry? Which I did. And from there, London, I moved to Carmarthen, Wales. And that's where I did. And I really liked the subject. From there, I landed in the field of psychiatry. And the more I studied and learned and all, and it was a state hospital. And it also brought into my attention then exposure to different world religions, including Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, you name it. And and of course my own religion, Sikhism, which I didn't know that much when I was in India, but I learned more and more as I entered into the social work, psychiatry, and the family practice type of work. I was confronted with all kinds of people. The joy of doing volunteer work, seeing those patients, who are don't have much resources, is indescribable. This is indescribable, because Guru Nanak's philosophy gives us 3 rules. They say, not only remember God in a ceaseless manner in your life, but also you must work, be honest, and earn your livelihood honestly, and then share part of your earnings, which may be time form or money form or any other form, for the benefit of the world, so that all of us can be prosperous and helpful to each other for peaceful coexistence. So they always kind of echoed in my mind, and that propelled me towards the social work.
So when was the last time you visited India?
This will be about 10 years plus, when I was probably around 65, 15 years ago. I had 2 aunts at that time alive in India. The one passed away and the other one passed away a few years later. And now I don't really have any close relatives anymore in India. All my family, brothers, sisters, including my parents, I sponsor them to come here, and my grandchildren, everybody's here. Mostly in USA on my mother's side, and they live in Canada.
Okay. That's nice. So do you miss India?
I miss I miss some parts of India, but I also have a lot of Indian people live around here everywhere. One thing I like to say is, when people migrate to the different countries, they should keep the good points of their life, but also try to learn the new things when they have come to new places. But if we want to recreate Punjab or Bengal, wherever we are living, and not incorporate the good things from the local culture, that's not a good way of living life. That's creating what they call ghettos. Your own people doing the same kind of things which really made you suffer from within your own countries, and now you're trying to perpetuate them in a foreign land instead of learning new habits. So I always emphasize that we should help people in India. I never forget my own background, and I try to help many people within my own village, and so that they can improve themselves, like I had the chance to do that over the years. That's how we remember our roots. But on the other hand, I also try to encourage the people within our own community also become more active with the mainstream community instead of just live in their own four walls of the house. Like, for example, if I was living in Bengal, I will interact with the Bengali people, learn the Bengali language, learn the Bengali ways of life, share with them the Sikh way of life, Punjabi way of life, and help enrich each other. But if I only live like a Punjabi all the time and no interaction with the Bengalis, that's not the way of life, at least not according to what I learned from Guru Nanak. He traveled so far and wide, went to Mecca and Medina, those areas towards Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and even China, Nanking, and all those, with his message of interactive, interreligious, intercultural dialogues. And that's why I'm a great believer in it. Interracial dialogues, so that we learn from each other and develop empathy and also relationship. Because everything we believe in the Sikhism, that Ikonkar means that's the one universal force, which Abrahamic side is one side, which is Ek, and Omkar is the dharmic side, but they're different aspects of the same coin. But Sikhism represents the happy marriage between them, or the happy relationship with them, saying that we come from one source, we end up in the whole source, and the rest of the life is principally based on the as you sow, so shall you reap. And it is your time to make choices, what you want to do. Even if you are born in a poor family or any other kind of family, now it's your choice to acquire skills and move to a place where you can better your life and also help bring improvement in other people's lives. But to stay stuck in the same situation where no chances of progress are available, you can't blame anyone else except yourself.
True. So one last question that we have for you, or rather I have for you, would be, you're a doctor. Now what happens, the thought that people have, doctors and religion are two ends of the world which doesn't connect quite often, because doctors, most of the time, they think practically. That's what people around the world would talk about. They talk practical things, and they believe in the law of science rather than the religious aspect. You've been a doctor, and now you're more into religion aspect where you also educate people on different religion. So you work on interfaith.
That's
So
right.
how did you manage from there? You are there doing your interfaith work. So when we ask you to pass on a message on interfaith to the world, like what's happening presently in India, where people are fighting in the name of religion, what would be your message to the people, and how would you tell them about the interfaith work that you are doing at present?
Thank you. That's excellent question. Very nice question. You know, Guru Nanak's own time, he was known as Nanak Shah Fakir, Hindu the Guru, Musalman the Peer. What that meant was that his counseling, his spiritual knowledge, his current knowledge, how to live good life, was to be shared with all the communities. And at that time, two dominant communities were Muslims and Hindus at that time. So because he welcomed all, and because they all felt that he's helping them to improve their lifestyles, so Muslims called him Peer and Hindus called him Guru. And then the one who totally followed his message onward, they became Sikhs. So same way, the in Punjabi we say dawa and dua. Dawa means medicine, dua means prayer. Those go hand in hand. And this is what Guru Nanak taught. He taught in Sikhism that Sarv Rog ka Aakhir Naam, that remembrance of Lord, remembering Him, and in His name doing all the things is really the key to the good health. Even in the Western countries, we have the model for the health now is what they call bio, psycho, social, and spiritual model. And a lot of people, like for example, Templeton Foundation, they have even prizes and funds available to help teach those things in the residency programs and schools and all other kinds of professions. Because the role of the religion is not obstructive. We don't promote one religion over another. What we promote is whatever your religion is, try to learn it in more thorough manner. Like for example, some person who's a Hindu, instead of going to Krishna Ji, Buddha Puja and all that kind of stuff, learn the life story of Krishna. How he did, how he managed in his life when he was a young person, and what happened as he grew older, and what was his relationship with Sudama, and how did he guide the situation with Draupadi, how did he guide with the Mahabharata, what battle took place, all those kind of things. Learn lessons from those things, not just bowing your head and then saying, hey, everything will be okay. It doesn't happen that way. So whatever religion you may be, if you're Muslim, go to Muhammad Sahib and learn from his lifestyle and all those kind of things. The more you learn the messengers of God, no matter where they come from, what religion, you will be surprised how similar their teachings are, how true and how empathetic and how helpful they were to no matter who was around them. It is the man-made later on differences and separations and adding all kinds of distortions and all that's what makes a religion usually different from another. And they become obstruction to help each other instead of collaborate with each other. So we emphasize in our training that doesn't matter what your religion is. Even the patient, if the patient says atheist, okay, you look at the atheist tradition, but if you're agnostic, look at those things. But look at them in a more analytic form, more learn lessons from it, and how that practice will be helpful to you. That's one thing. Second thing, I always have a chaplain on my team. Chaplain job is to be aware of all religions and being able to be a resource for the patients. And I tell my chaplains, I don't want to pray for my patients. I want them to learn how to pray. So take a class and teach them how to reconstruct their own prayer. And then able to do it, use it as a tool wherever they are. They don't need to go to a church or gurdwara or mosque or temple or any place. They can do it wherever they are. Where does God live? God lives inside you. God is not in the mandir or Gurdwara or any other place or Hardwar or Makkah. God is not there. God is inside where you are. So God, to get in touch, you have to do introspection. That introspection is the one which helps you to recognize, get in touch with your inner voice, and that inner voice guidance, your own superego, helps you to propel in a proper manner. Like in Punjab, for example, we have 5 rivers. Same way, there are 5 vices in human beings. You know, the rivers, when they are put a dam or water is regulated, we can generate hydroelectric energy as well as irrigate our lands properly. If we don't manage them properly, they'll cause high water, floods and destroy. Same way the religion is used, or the religious knowledge, no matter where you acquire and whatever you acquire, to help regulate your life so that you can be a better person, and not necessarily that you have to go any particular place to worship. So this is how we use religion in a clinical sense.
Yeah, thank you so much. So yes, that is the message to the world, to the nation, that God dwells within you. So you do not find God in a temple or church or mosque or any other place, but He dwells in you and me. So it's just that we need to recognize, above all, religion is the religion for humanity. So we should all work towards humanity. It was on the 1st of July that we have just celebrated Doctor's Day. So on behalf of the entire team of Voice of Manavta, we would like to wish Dr. Kirpal a very, very happy Doctor's Day. And thank you to all the doctors in the world for doing what you are doing to save humanity. So what is your message, Dr. Kirpal, to the nation if we ask you to just give one message to the doctors, to youngsters, to the people in this nation? What would be your message?
Well, my brothers and sisters, I urge you to recognize yourself, who you are. We have in Punjabi, Mantu Josru Apna Murpachan. Recognize your roots are really in the divinity. And your conduct, the way you will do, no matter what place you come from, what gender you are, where you may be, really the knowledge is within you. Try to tap it and use it for your own benefit and the rest of the world. Don't look at others to give you, impart you. If someone does, fine, but otherwise it's you, inside you, it's all there. Just take time, be still, and look for the kingdom of God is in you, not outside. All those heavens and hell and all those kind of threats, there's no place in life. Wherever you are, that is wherever God is. You can change, make the right choices. If somehow you made bad choices, you can always turn your decision into a different form which will improve your life. So keep working, never give up, and trust in God and trust in yourself, and that's the source of your strength. And God bless you all. Even if you don't believe in it, stay, whatever you is, may somehow comfort with you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kirpal. We really appreciate, and your journey has truly been inspiring for many people out there watching us on Facebook, or for many who would be watching us in future, because this is a podcast which is going to remain on Facebook, on the Voice of Manavta page. So I request people, never give up in life. You go through failures, आप हारेंगे, आप टूटेंगे, आप गिरेंगे, लेकिन फिर से आपको उठ के खड़ा होना है, फिर से आपको दिखाना है कि आप हार मानने वालों में से नहीं है। तो अगर कभी भी बात करनी हो, हमारे वॉइस ऑफ मानवता टीम हमेशा अवेलेबल है। अगर कोई हारते हैं लाइफ में और डिप्रेस हो जाते हैं, मायूस हो जाते हैं, हमारी टीम से आप जुड़ सकते हैं। मैं फेसबुक में अवेलेबल हूँ, आप मुझे फेसबुक में मैसेज भेज सकते हैं। हम जितने होंगे हम आपके सहयोग करेंगे, हम आपको अपना योगदान देंगे। शुक्रिया, धन्यवाद। मेघराज जी, धन्यवाद आपका भी। कि आप युवाओं को, आप मतलब यंगस्टर्स को, युवाओं को इतनी बढ़ोतरी देते हैं, आप सच की इतना साथ देते हैं। जैसे मेघरा जी ऑलवेज सेज कि ये जो हमारे शो है, हमारे कार्यक्रम है, ये जिंदा लोगों के लिए है। जिंदा क्यों? क्योंकि हम सच बोलना जानते हैं, हम बोलना जानते हैं, वरना चुप तो मुर्दे भी रहना जानते हैं। तो इसीलिए ये जिंदा लोगों का शो है, ये आपका चैनल है। आप हमें इसी तरीके से प्यार देते रहे, सपोर्ट करते रहे, और हमारा प्यार आपसे हमेशा बना रहेगा। So thank you so much, Dr. Kripal, once again for your
Thank you.
time, your efforts. I really appreciate. We will definitely keep in touch offline through our WhatsApp chat or through a messenger, and we'll be there connected on social media.
Thank you very much. It's nice meeting you, Christina, face to face. And thank you, Meghra. Me too.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
मेघरा जी, आप म्यूट में हो, अनम्यूट कीजिए।
सत श्री अकाल जी, वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरु जी फतेह। डॉक्टर कृपाल सिंह का स्पेशल धन्यवाद, और कृष्णा जी आपका भी धन्यवाद। बहुत सारे लोग जो है देखते हैं कि सतयुग और कलयुग की बात करते हैं, और त्रेता युग की बात करते हैं, द्वापर की बात करते हैं। मेरा हिसाब से ऐसा है कि कलयुगी इंसान कौन है, सतयुगी कौन है। कलयुगी होते हैं जो झूठ बोलते हैं, बेईमानी करते हैं, और सतयुगी होते हैं जो सच बोलते हैं, ईमानदार से काम करते हैं। तो डॉक्टर कृपाल सिंह सतयुगी इंसान है, और ये समझ लीजिए कि जो सच बोलते हैं, उनकी मिठास, उनकी आवाज में मिठास, उनके आवाज में प्यार, वो सच्चाई को सपोर्ट भी करते हैं। तो हमें तो सतयुगी इंसान से मुलाकात हुई, हम भी कुछ सीख रहे हैं इनसे, कुछ सीखने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, इस करके आगे बढ़ने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। थैंक यू जी, डॉक्टर कृपाल सिंह।
Thank you. Thank you, जी।